Welcome in. Welcome in to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We have an amazing Week 3 slate. Let's get right to it with the stars of the show. R.J. White, the NFL authority, joining me. Mike McClure, the master of the models, and Will Brinson will be on in a short time. But guys, we got to get right to Thursday night football. Mike, I'm going to come to you. Patriots and Jets. How are you playing this one with the Jets favored by 6 at home?
You know, Larry, I played it multiple ways. I do like the Jets -6. I think they take care of business, but my preferred way to attack this game is going to be the Patriots team total under 16.5. I think that's just a big ask for this team to score multiple touchdowns. And when you get to 16.5, that's going to take several field goals. When I look at the way the Patriots want to play, they do not want to play a shootout. They're a team that is absolutely going to be committed to running the football, making the game as ugly and quick as possible. And I think they're going to be able to do that for most of the game. As long as they're within 10 points, I think they stay committed to their game plan. And I think it ultimately is not going to be great for them. They've got a number of question marks offensively, not to mention a short week in division on the road, but it's really that offensive line. It's a makeshift offensive line. We know the left tackle is out, center and guard also questionable. I think they could be down 3 offensive linemen in this particular game against the Jets. A lot of emotions with Aaron Rodgers making the home debut, really. We only got 4 games last season. So give me the Patriots, their team total under 16.5 here.
Love that play, Mike. And I love the fact that Mr. Brinson is in the house. Will, take it away.
What's up, fellas? Thank you, Larry. Obviously, the one fault of actually calendaring things is if you set a recurring 2 p.m. calendar alert and you schedule your day around it, sometimes you forget. So here we are. That's on me. Anywho, I like the Jets tonight. I think Rodgers gets going. I think we see Garrett Wilson get going. Breece Hall's usage through the roof. Patriots, it's a short week. It's a tough spot, but the Patriots, for them coming off of an overtime, loss to the Seahawks. And, I do think that this Jets defense can get after Jacoby Brissett enough to the point that we see the Jets kind of pull away. And if they get a lead, I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively. But, man, credit to the Patriots for the start this season. They've looked like, you get to 2-0, and all of a sudden there's some questions being asked about Mr. Media, Bill Belichick, how he is suddenly gone, and the Patriots are playing well. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, I got to jump in on this.
RJ, what do you think?
I think I had a best bet for this game, and it was the same one as yours, but I switched it off because I saw everyone was on this game, and Larry had a much more interesting pick. So how about Larry take it away?
Yeah, I'm itching to jump in on this game, Will, because I love both of your plays. Teams playing overtime on Sunday and then traveling on a Thursday night, a short week on the road. 2-15 against the number. They usually go under their team total. So, Mike, that helps you out. And Will, yeah, the offensive line, the left side is out. The center and the right tackle are questionable. So this is a tough ask for New England, which is why I like Will Anderson. This guy stepped up last week, destroyed the game against Will Levis. He had 3 sacks. He basically won the game for the Jets, 15th overall pick last year. And we got a glimpse on Sunday of why he's such a good pass rusher. I love him over 0.25 sacks, which means all he has to do is get half a sack, and we cash this plus money bet. He had a 25% pressure rate. Jacoby Brissett is very safe with the ball. He will take a sack. He had 3 sacks last week against Seattle. So I love this play, Will McDonald, to get at least half a sack. And then Breece Hall. He's a receiving machine, 14 targets this year. Zach Charbonnet got 31 receiving yards. Zach Charbonnet is not a receiving back. Breece Hall has become an elite receiving back, the highest target share of any running back through 2 weeks in the past 4 years at 24%. Aaron Rodgers is looking to dump off the ball, looking to get it out quick. Breece Hall over 30.5 rushing yards, my second prop for this game.
All right. I dig it. We've got a crazy spread. We've got to talk about one that now features Derek Carr, a 3-point favorite. Coming back. Actually, Mike, did you give out your Pat's team total. So you gave out Pat's team total under, right? Yeah. So we can go to the bump, but we can talk about how we'll return and discuss Derek Carr being a massive 3-point favorite over the Philadelphia Eagles. A surprising situation when you consider the inherent nature of that game. Or we'll stick around and just talk. No, okay, we're going to commercial, which is what we would do. So watch the Early Edge podcast. Make sure to subscribe at every day, 10 a.m. I'm waiting for this to go to commercial, and it's not. So I will just keep going, talking about the Giants and the Browns. Browns -6.5, over under 38.5. I'm extremely flustered today. Shout out to me for really being prepared here. Mike, your thoughts on Giants and Browns? Deshaun Watson, 6.5-point favorite.
Yeah, so I love the Browns in this spot. I love Deshaun Watson. I know this is not a DFS show. I will be playing Deshaun Watson in DFS this week. I think the Browns roll here. You know, when you look at the Giants, it was really unimpressive. I've been very unimpressed. I know Malik Neighbors has been fantastic. That was a product of the Commanders' defense. The Commanders have the worst defense in the NFL, in my opinion, and they were still able to get a win over this New York Giants team. Now they're on the road against this Browns team that really, I think, is better in every single way. And I think that they're going to be able to move the football with success. So I think this is one where the looks for me are going to be Browns -6, Browns -6.5, and then start to look at that Giants team total under, because once the Browns get this lead, you're going to see a heavy dose of Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman, likely Deontay Foreman in the second half of that game. So another player prop lean there would be Deontay Foreman over on his carries attempts.
We saw Daniel
Larry,
Jones
do you have a
totally
lean
melt
on this
down.
game? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We saw him melt down against Brian Flores and that aggressive defense. That game was at home. Now you go to Cleveland, where you have some elite cornerbacks that can match up against Malik Neighbors. And then what is Daniel Jones going to do? The only reason I haven't pulled the trigger on this is I want to see Jack Conklin actually be active, even though he's practicing in full. Last week he practiced a lot and still didn't play, and we saw their offense started off good and then did nothing the rest of the game against the Jaguars. So I'm a little hesitant with that Browns offense, but yeah, the only way I could look is Cleveland.
All right, let's like I mentioned, we got a game between the Eagles and the Saints that's coming up. We will discuss that one. We also talk about the rest of the early Sunday slate. But more important, Eagles Saints. Derek Carr playing his tail off. Looks like an early MVP favorite. Should you bet on him to take down the Eagles as a 3-point favorite? We will tell you coming up next here on the Early Edge NFL Pick Show. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show. Getting you ready for week 3 of the NFL season. Only took me 2 weeks to get completely flustered. I did go 5 on my bets last week. So if that is any consolation prize to you, we'll do better this week. And we will start with a pick I have at Packers at Titans. The Titans are -1.5 in this game with an over-under of 37.5. Now, I think that I like this under 37.5. And RJ, I'll throw it to you in a second on what to do with the Jordan Love situation. But regardless of whether Jordan Love plays or not, I don't think the Packers will be hyper aggressive in terms of letting him run around, letting him take too many dropbacks. The Titans, we've seen it. Will Levis does something meme-worthy every single week, whether it's the flying Spider-Man underhand scoop or the Surrender Cobra pick 6 move, whatever it is, he likes to do something silly each and every week. And I think the Packers are going to try and win this with defense and a whole lot of Josh Jacobs. They paid the guy in the offseason. He's clearly their workhorse. They're perfectly fine with the idea of feeding him. And I think that they're probably going to try to do it again. Now, a little bit tougher against the Titans defense with Sweat and those guys in the middle, but I think they'll be able to run the ball effectively. You saw what Matt LaFleur schemed up last week, and I like the under here, especially because if for some reason Jordan Love doesn't play, RJ, it could come down maybe even a touch more.
Well, right now, I think we're seeing the market is starting to expect him to play. We've seen this tick up a bit. It's now 38 at BetMGM. There's still some 37.5s available. Very few, I think they're getting snapped up right now. So it looks like it's going to be 38. at least for today. And then we'll need to know more about whether Love plays. If Love does play, I do like the Packers' ability to score points better because then you add the passing game into the mix, which was not there last week with Malik Willis. And if you only run against this Titans defense, it's going to come out a lot differently than it did last week. They'll be able to defend it a lot better. So if you think Love is going to play, I like taking the over right now, especially on 37.5, because I think there will be points scored. This Green Bay defense, even if they want to play defense and play a conservative game, I don't know that they can execute. They have not looked very good through 2 weeks. I know Indy didn't score a ton of points, but they did average a ton of yards per play. So haven't been as impressed as I hoped I would be by this Packers defense so far. If you don't think Love is going to play, then Titans obviously is the way to go. That number will get back up to 3. So playing Titans -1.5 now, or as soon as Love starts to trend the wrong way, would be the way to go if you think he's not going to play. And then if you think he is going to play, I'd grab an over 37.5 now because I think there will be points in that game.
It's good to know you're hardcore against me on this one. I appreciate that. And look, the Packers could score 21 points on pick sixes. Who knows with Will Levis at the helm. Bears at Colts. The Colts -1.5. Lucas Oil indoors. 43.5 here total, Larry. Caleb Williams hasn't looked great so far this year, but neither has the Colts defense.
Yeah, he hasn't looked great, although Chris Collinsworth seemed to be seeing a lot of progress from Caleb Williams in that game in Houston, where he did show a little bit of improvement over week 1. And now he faces, this is a cake matchup. No DeForest Buckner, no Samson Ebukam, no Juju Brents, Leatu Latu didn't practice on Wednesday. So that's 4 key defenders right there for the Colts. So if Caleb Williams can't get it going this week, he can't get it going this season. I'm going to play the Bears as part of a teaser, put them up to +7.5. Think they have enough offensive talent to keep this close, especially with what we've seen from the Colts so far, which isn't much.
I'm right there with you, Larry. I think they're a perfect candidate for a teaser leg this week. And I really do expect Caleb Williams to take a step forward in this game. He has been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL through 2 games. But this defense of the Colts, I think that they're going to continue to struggle with the run defense, which means we should see Swift and Herbert open things up very, very nicely for Caleb Williams. I think it's going to allow him to settle down and really let that game slow down for him. So I do think they're live to win the game outright. I do like the Bears defense. They kept him in that game against Houston, frankly, in the 3rd quarter. But I really think it's a teaser candidate. You can get them 7.5. As far as where to pair them, I think there are a number of options this week. The Packers +8.5, the Bucks -0.5, the Eagles +8.5, the Browns -0.5. There are several options this week here, but I do like the Bears +7.5 as a teaser leg.
Yeah, hard not to look at the Bears as a good value on that teaser leg at over 7. Especially, I mean, they might legitimately have the best defense in football. It's probably a top 5 unit. I mean, it's surprising how well they played. Credit to Matt Eberflus. Now he's got to figure out that offense. Shouldn't be any shortage of offense in the Texans and Vikings game. This is probably, if you're doing a draft of like games you get to go to this week, and there's some good games this week, especially in the back half of the primetime slate, this might be it for me. I love this game. I mean, you're talking about Sam Darnold. But in all seriousness, Sam Darnold has been a top 3 or 4 quarterbacks so far over the course of the NFL season. And CJ Stroud has been awesome as well. Darnold, of course, 2-0, 72% completion rate. And you look at that, 9.5 robust yards per attempt. Kevin O'Connell, in my opinion, the leader in the clubhouse for Coach of the Year. Matt LaFleur right there with him as well. Justin Jefferson banged up, but I think he's expected to play here. And I think we could see a lot of points. Now, Derek Stingley Jr. is playing like an all-pro cornerback right now. Like, just shut out DJ Moore in that Sunday night game. I don't think, what did Justin Jefferson say? He said, all due respect to Garrett Wilson, I'm not Garrett Wilson. Well, all due respect to DJ Moore, Justin Jefferson ain't DJ Moore. I think Jefferson gets his in this game. Jalen Naylor has been a really nice development for the Vikings in that offense, and Aaron Jones working that short area passing as well. And then on the flip side, you have Brian Flores' defense is going to be hyper aggressive in terms of blitzing CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud on the year, 15 of 19 against the blitz for 151 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. This is a guy who can beat the blitz with that great offensive line and weapons like Nico Collins and Tank Dell who are going to get deep and allow him to take some of those shots, I think we see a ton of points. I'm going to take the over 46 here, RJ. You like one of the sides, though.
Yeah, I like taking Houston here, fading Minnesota coming off a massive upset win. I'm a big fan of Minnesota. I bet Sam Darnold to win MVP before the season at 200-1. So, happy with what I've seen so far there. They played well. Even if you remove that long Jefferson touchdown, they had 5.8 yards per play against a good defense. But the Minnesota defense, you look at that game and San Francisco scored 17 in that game. They did allow San Francisco to get to midfield on 7 of their 10 drives. Not necessarily as impressive as the final score with the 5.9 yards per play allowed. They're going to play another elite offense here. We've seen what Houston can do, and we're getting Houston as a discount. The look ahead was -4, and then Minnesota had that surprise win there. And I think that, I would probably make this game around 3. I have it -1.5 as a best bet here with a bet MGM. They did just bump it up a little bit to 2 to be more in line with the market. I'm still leaning that way at the 2 because, like I said, I think this line should be 3. I think the Texans have proven that they're a better team than the Vikings to this point, which is why they're favored at Minnesota. And Minnesota's probably in line for a come down off of that big win.
Mentioned it before, Eagles and Saints, big time game between 2 NFC playoff contenders, and just a wild swing in terms of this line, Mike, because it is now Saints -3 hosting the Eagles. I don't remember what the preseason line was. I know before last week, the look-ahead line, the Eagles were favored in this one, a total of 49.5. I think we could see lots of points. I mean, this is a pretty massive market overcorrection, right?
Yeah, massive market overcorrection. Wrong team favored for me here still. Make the Eagles a favorite in this game. I think they continue to dominate, and they really dominated Atlanta. Atlanta had no business winning that football game. The Eagles made some poor decisions, poor result, but by far the best team in the NFL at possessing the football. They have 8 drives of 10-plus plays already this season, and I think that's going to continue here. They're going to continue to rely on Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts with his legs, and they're going to keep that Saints offense off the field, but it's really what the Saints have done. While I love what they have done and I love some of their pieces going forward, most notably Chris Olave, actually, what they've done with Alvin Kamara and Shaheed are both highly unsustainable long-term. And I think it shows up in this particular spot. I think the Eagles, again, able to dominate the time of possession. I make them a favorite in this game. Now that you're giving me a full 3, I have to take it here because I think that they have a solid game plan. I think they might elect to kick a long field goal this week instead of trying to score a touchdown in certain situations. And Jake Elliott, one of the best here. So give me the Eagles +3.
RJ, I know that you are a man of sound economic principles and also a man who likes to take advantage of ridiculous line movement. Yes?
Yeah, the early look ahead here was Eagles -3.5, and with barring a quarterback injury, there is no world where there's a line should be adjusted 6.5 points, to one side. So once this got to 3, I jumped off of one of my other best bets and put this one in because this is the number you want for this game. The Eagles, like Mike said, should be favored here. It's shocking how well the New Orleans offensive line has played, especially against Dallas. And Philadelphia's defense certainly looks like it's going to struggle to stop good offenses. This is just a market play here. I like taking Philly here when it's +3 to fade New Orleans at their absolute peak value with that massive look ahead move. You couldn't make the Saints any more valuable in my opinion at this point. So this is just a numbers play here. Don't see how the Eagles lose this game by more than 3 unless you start firing the Vic Fangio and everybody on defense because you need to start making some stops here, Philly.
Yeah, I think maybe if you're gonna look at any concerns on defense, it would be a lack of edge pressure from the Eagles so far. But, I mean, this Saints offensive line was supposed to be terrible and they're playing really well. Like Trevor Penning just straight up one-on-one blocked Micah Parsons in some spots, which is not a thing I would ever thought I'd said before the season began. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter could get plenty of pressure on the interior here. And if they do, that will make life a lot tougher for Derek Carr. I do think you have to worry a little bit about Shaheed and Chris Olave maybe having a first time, first breakout game of the season, getting open against some of the defenses they play on the back end. I'll take the Eagles +3 here as well. The Dolphins, without Tua, we got Skylar Thompson coming to play. Tyreek Hill's still there, though. He got 15 targets the last time Skylar Thompson started a game, and the Seahawks offense got going. Who is going to win in that game? Who is going to cover? We will tell you coming up next on the Early Edge NFL Pick Show. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show, Week 3, the 2024 NFL season. Cats and dogs living together. The world is upside down. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Derek Carr, your 3 MVP leaders 2 weeks into the year. I'm sure that'll all last. For RJ's future's sake, I hope that it does. What also might last, the Steelers keep winning. Justin Fields under center, because man, Russell Wilson in pads on the sideline for the entire year would be amazing. He got a petty game ball after the Steelers beat the Broncos in week 2. And as a result of the 2-0 record, the Steelers head home welcoming the Chargers. The Chargers hung around in Charlotte. They did a bunch of charity work. They set the record at a charity event for fastest, most number of boxes packed in a certain number of times. Jim Harbaugh like going nuts over it. I love the Harbaughisation of the Chargers. And quite frankly, I want to take the Chargers on the money line here. I think the Chargers can win this game. I'm going to put them in a teaser instead and get them up to plus 7.5, right? Plus 7.5 because the line's 1.5. 6-point teaser. I don't see how the Chargers get blown out in this game by an Arthur Smith offense that can't really do a whole lot of damage any which way. George Pickens, the underlying metrics are really good for him. So maybe he has just a monster game and the Chargers are forced to throw a ton, and their weapons on the outside with Lab McConkey and Quentin Johnson, who's had a very nice season, 2 touchdown catches last week. Not exactly effective. But I think this offensive line with the Chargers, and they'll load up 11. They'll put 11 in the box against you and just pound the ball. They don't care. I think this offensive line for LA is as good as it gets in the league. And I think they're able to run the ball here. I like Chargers in a teaser getting 7.5. Larry, what say you in terms of a lean in this game?
You asked how the Chargers could get blown out. Easton Stick, that's how. I mean, Justin Herbert did not practice on that ankle injury, and we have to wait for his status. Otherwise, I agree with you. I would be on the Chargers as part of a teaser leg, but I got to have Justin Herbert playing football. The Steelers have scored 1 touchdown so far through 2 games. They want to beat you in a 16-13 type game, so I do like the teaser angle if Herbert is there. But right now, with the current status, I have to lean under. The Steelers their games have not hit 30 points yet. Either of their 2 games, you have a total of 35.5. You have 2 teams that want to pound the ball. That are going to be very conservative, even if it is Justin Herbert in there. So right now, my lean is under.
RJ, real quickly, do you think that this line, is this baked in with the Justin Herbert stuff? Does it shift back to more of a pick 'em if Herbert's limited or questionable? I mean, if Herbert's full go, by Friday.
It probably comes down a little bit. There is some injury risk there, but I think the drop off from him to Stick is so great that I think it's still the market is treating it as likely he's going to play. So if you're thinking otherwise, you think there's a really danger here, I would go the Steelers way and get that minus 1.5 in because they have no excuse of losing that game to Easton Stick if he's a starter.
Yeah, and just for the record, I want my teaser stricken from the record if Easton Stick ends up starting, because at that point you would be getting like the Chargers like +2. Just don't do that if Easton Stick is playing. The aforementioned Denver Broncos head to Tampa Bay to face the also aforementioned Baker Mayfield. The Buccaneers will be a popular survivor selection here. Won't be favored this much until about week 12. They are minus 6.5 with a total of 39.5, Larry. Any chance that Sean Payton gets Bo Nix going in his 3rd career start on the road against the Cannons?
I don't think it happens this week. Bo Nix, what we've seen from him so far, we've seen 5 yards per attempt, 0 TDs, 4 interceptions. And I don't know if you saw the video, but he couldn't get the play call in time. He had to look at his wristband to remember the play call. They had to take a timeout, which they needed in that second half against Pittsburgh because Sean Payton's play calls are so complicated. And probably the most telling stat about this Broncos offense, which doesn't have a lot of explosiveness, 2.8 yards per play in the first 3 quarters before the Seahawks and the Steelers kind of loosened up their defense a little bit with a sizable lead. And that's when Denver put up a lot of their offense in the 4th quarter. The first 3 quarters, 2.8 yards per play. That is historically bad. And I love what I've seen. I should just say no favorite of 6.5 or more has covered yet this season. So you got to be careful on that. But I don't think you can stay away from it when the matchup is so good. And Baker Mayfield has been so efficient with those three receivers. Jalen McMillan has added another element. Chris Godwin looks like the old Chris Godwin, so fresh. And Baker Mayfield playing great football, 74% completion rate, 5 TDs, 1 pick. I think this has a Buccaneers 10-point win written all over it.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Buccaneers, Larry. And you know, this is one of those matchups. It turns out Dave Canales not the secret sauce for Baker Mayfield, and having Liam Cohen in there, he's been perfectly fine, if not better. You also have Patrick Surtain, who can erase a wide receiver, but with Godwin coming out of the slot, he's been there way more often under Cohen, and then McLaughlin as an option, Jaleel, excuse me, you know, I'm talking about McMillan, not McLaughlin. That's for the Broncos. With McMillan, Jalen McMillan there, I think you can see the opportunity for other receivers to get involved. I also think two factors here. One, I think Tampa Bay can run with the revamped offensive line against Denver's front. And that means a lot of Rachaad White in this spot. I also think Tampa Bay's run metrics are a little bit skewed by some longer runs by the Lions and a good Lions run game. And then Jaden Daniels running for 88 yards. I don't think that Bo Nix is going to do that. They may want to incorporate some read option, but more than likely, he's going to have to drop back and pass, 40 times again. He's passed, I think he has 75 pass attempts through two games. That is wild for a rookie quarterback, and you really have to pass against Tampa to win. This is a tough spot for Bo Nix on the road against an aggressive Todd Bowles defense. I think the Bucs can cruise to another double-digit home victory. Oh, man. There it is, RJ. You know what time it is. It's Andy Dalton time. Panthers, head to the Raiders. I mean, my God. Imagine that the number one pick from last year is benched 2 games into his second season, and it's a big deal for like 12 hours, and everyone kind of moves on because it's like, well, I don't know. And imagine even worse that the line moves 1.5 points, now 2 full points, and the total bumps up like 3 or 4 whole points as a result of going from Bryce Young, again, the number 1 overall pick last year, to a 36-year-old Andy Dalton. I know you said you would never get back on the Panthers bandwagon after last week, but here you are, right?
Yeah, well, after what I saw last week, I said there's no way I can play this team. The passing offense was atrocious, and I don't know how you could back them. I thought that line was super inflated by probably 4 points against the Chargers. Didn't think the Chargers on the road should be favored by that much against anybody. And it turns out that was warranted because they were not playing an NFL quarterback, and this week they are. So I'm back on the Panthers here at +5. Dalton's a proven vet. The Vegas defense has been beaten up on the ground in particular, and Carolina's run game actually was solid last week, despite zero threat that they could complete a pass more than 5 yards down the field. Vegas was minus 1.8 yards per play against Baltimore, despite the surprise win. They were down 10 in the fourth quarter. I think they have a hangover effect here after coming out with a win against a team that it was a shocking win, and now they're supposed to beat this team. Then you look at this number; it's down to 5 now. The number in week 1, when we thought Carolina might have a competent offense and Bryce Young would take a step forward, was +4 against the Saints. And the Saints then, I know they're much better now. We think of them much better now. But the Saints then were still in a better spot in people's minds than the Raiders are right now. So I think that's what the number has to be, at least at 4. Even if you factor in the injuries that Carolina has had, particularly Derek Brown. I just don't see why this number doesn't keep going down and maybe even get near 3. So if we're getting it above 4 still, then you got to make Carolina a best bet.
Yeah, look, this is a dead cat bounce game, borderline literally, because they're a feline mascot, and man, do they look completely dead. You can't. It's one of those ones where you make such an aggressive move by benching Bryce Young. Everyone on the roster knows they're playing for their jobs. Nobody is safe for very long under David Tepper's very, very aggressive thumb and trigger finger here when it comes to firing people. I do think what we'll see from Las Vegas is potentially like an attempt to really establish Zamir White and maybe Alexander Mattison. I don't think it'll be extremely efficient running the ball, but I think they'll try to run the ball a ton and let Carolina hang around just long enough for the Ginger King to come storming through the back door and cover that 5 points. Panthers probably don't win, but I wouldn't take the Raiders in Survivor. I'll tell you that much. Dolphins at the Seahawks. Seahawks -4.5. No to Tagovailoa, of course. We get Skylar Thompson here, Mike, and I think what you decide to do with sort of depends on how you feel about Mike McDaniel's ability to scheme up stuff, right?
Yeah, and look, I like the Dolphins here. I played them plus 4.5. I think the numbers should be 2 here, honestly. When I look at this team, I'm not sure how great the Seahawks actually are. They got to face Bo Nix making his NFL debut, and for half of that game, the entire country was thinking, oh, here we go again. The Bengals just lost in Survivor. The other popular pick was Seattle. So they were far from impressive in that game. They needed overtime to beat the New England Patriots in a game where their top 2 receivers both went for 100 yards. I do not think this Seahawks team is actually that good right now at this point in the season. But when you look at the Dolphins, Skylar Thompson did not look good coming in that game. He had no idea that he would have potentially been playing in that game. They were not prepared for that early in the season at all. It's drastically different when you've got a week to prepare for making a spot start like this. Devon Achan's going to have a ton of work. Tyreek Hill's going to see a ton of targets near the line of scrimmage. Mostert practiced. I think he plays in this game as well. No Ken Walker on the other side. I think this game could be ugly, but I think the Dolphins dominate some time of possession and are ultimately within a field goal here. I think it's a gift at 4.5.
RJ, you are also on the Dolphins, but in a different fashion.
Yeah, I disagree that, the line should be 2. I think it's around right, even though I do agree that Seahawks have not been that impressive. They also are beat up on both sides of the ball, so we'll need to watch the injury report here to know what to expect. But I like Miami plus 3.5 in the first half. I think any surprise that they're going to get out of Skylar Thompson and scheming things up is going to come in the first half. And we know this is the right coach to get the most out of Skylar Thompson. He was not that impressive as a rookie, but he's been able to sit and digest and develop for a year. So we'll see what he comes out with here, and if he looks better than he did in that rookie year. The line over adjusted for 2 initially. When it was up at 6, definitely would have jumped on the Dolphins there. Now that it's down to 4.5, I'd rather play this first half line at plus 3.5 and trust that McDaniel has a good plan to keep it close early.
I'm going to take the over Tyreek Hill receptions, 4.5 here. It's a little juice, like minus 135, but I think or over 5.5. Either way, I don't really care. I think you've seen these games. The last game that Skylar Thompson started, that playoff game against Buffalo, we saw Tyreek Hill got 15 targets, and Mike hit on it. They are not going to ask Skylar Thompson to throw the bombs down the field that you see from Tua when Tyreek's in there. But they are going to scheme up a ton of stuff near the line of scrimmage, whether it's like jet sweeps, just putting Tyreek Hill in all kinds of motion, getting him the ball in space near the line of scrimmage, and hoping that he can be not a de facto run game, but sort of like a horizontal late breaking type of run game, because you know they're going to stack the box and dare you to run against them. I think this is a Tyreek Hill game through and through. At least in terms of targets and receptions. I think he clears that easily. All right. Couple more afternoon games to take care of, plus a killer slate of prime time games. Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, a lot of narratives rolling around the NFL with this Cowboys and Ravens matchup. We'll tell you what our best bets are for that game coming up next here on the NFL Early Edge Pick Show. Welcome back to the Week 3 NFL Early Edge Pick Show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, R.J. White, giving you the best bets for every game on the slate. And we have a fantastic matchup between the Ravens and the Cowboys. Both teams under plenty of pressure so far this season. The Cowboys came in with lots of pressure. The Ravens decided to lose to the Chiefs in week 1 and just choke their faces off, ruining survivor pools in week 2, coughing up a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter to the Raiders. And now they head to Dallas, Larry, where they're actually a 1-point favorite with a robust 48.5 total. Mike McCarthy, a lot of people with their backs against the wall in Dallas, and now they're a literal underdog at home.
Yeah, I like the Ravens to get that first win, 20-1 straight up against the NFC. That's what Lamar Jackson is. And I think it makes sense because when you don't see a guy like him, you don't see his speed, and that's a fast turf in Dallas. And I think facing 0-3, Lamar is going to run wild. I think Derrick Henry is going to run wild because the middle of the Cowboys defense has been terrible. They have the great edge rushers, but the middle is soft, and you can run all day on the Cowboys. That's what we've seen this year. That's what we saw at the end of last season. So I think this is a very nice spot for the Ravens. They could be 2-0. They probably should be at least 1-1. They finally get their first win.
Mike, you agree or disagree with Larry here?
I agree that the Ravens have to win this game. They start 0-3. They have a 20 to 25% chance of starting 0-5 because they've got the Bills and the Bengals on deck after this game. So it's an absolute must win. I agree they should be at least 1-1. When you look at this spot, I also agree that Lamar Jackson has to run. We saw in week 1 against Kansas City, Lamar wanted to try and prove a point and go win that game himself, and he almost got it done. He's going to do the same thing in this game after being 0-2 to start the season. So I love his rushing. My favorite way to attack it, though, is going to be CeeDee Lamb. You can find him, especially over on BetMGM right now, at just 78.5 receiving yards. This is 83.5 at other books across the industry. I look at this matchup here and look at what Davante Adams was able to do against the Ravens last week. Over 100 yards with Gardner Minshew playing quarterback and a team that didn't even attempt to run the football. They did not try to run the football at all. They knew it was coming and they couldn't stop it. Davante is a Hall of Famer, absolutely elite. CeeDee Lamb is miles ahead of Davante Adams right now in terms of individual play. This is a 100-yard game for CeeDee Lamb, especially if Lamar is having success on the ground. Over 78.5 is a gift for CeeDee Lamb.
I like that. That's a good spot. You could also look at Lamar Jackson all rushing overs if you wanted to. You can get 60 plus rushing yards or 60 or more rushing yards at plus money out there. And I do think you're right. We've seen Lamar when he knows it's a must-win game, he is not afraid to activate those legs. And with that offensive line playing as poorly as it is for Baltimore, I think we can see Todd Monken dial up some designed rushing plays against this Mike Zimmer defense. 49ers -7 at the Rams. God. I mean, at least I have excuses for my Rams picks, right? I mean, the entire team is headed to IR, multiple offensive linemen on IR this week. Cooper Kupp maybe not going, but Puka Nacua already there. I mean, Matthew Stafford is down all his weapons and all his protection, and lucky him, at home, he gets one of the best teams in the NFL, a team that, Kyle Shanahan has absolutely dominated. Sean McVay, with the exception of a couple playoff games over their careers at their respective spots. I have the Niners here in my teaser with the Chargers -1. I think San Francisco finds a way to win this game. Maybe Stafford storms in through the back door, but you've seen this total come, it's down because of the weapons and the lack of weapons in LA. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if this was San Francisco gets a lead, no Deebo Samuel, that's fine. Brandon Ayuk explosion spot, maybe George Kittle, and then a heavy dose, Larry, of Jordan Mason. I have the Niners -1 and the Chargers +7.5. I think that one gets there for me.
Yeah, right with you on a teaser. I paired the Niners -1 with the Bears +7.5. On the defensive side, Hufanga expected to make his debut. That's an all-pro safety the Niners are adding. Bosa, there was an injury scare, but he's totally fine. So, yeah, maybe the Rams show some heart and they bounce back and put a competitive effort. But I love the 49ers basically just to win the game, bring them down to -1.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about the Rams thing is that it takes away maybe from one of these great afternoon games. Nothing bad, though, about Lions at Cardinals. The Cardinals have been a surprise team. Kyler Murray, I should have mentioned, probably in that MVP discussion 2 weeks as well, the premature MVP discussion. But he's a 3-point dog at home, RJ, with one of the highest totals on the slate, 51.5. You've been backing the Lions and think they've been shortchanged by the odds makers all year. Is 3 too short against this frisky Arizona Cardinals team?
I think 3 is too short. The market is moving Arizona's rating up after a great showing against a beat-up Rams team. Much tougher test for the offense here. Aiden Hutchinson coming off a game of 4.5 sacks last week, while DJ Reader's return helped shut down the run. Arizona had just 4.5 yards per play in week 1, so they, even though they scored a bunch of points, they had that big return. It wasn't really like they had a lot of sustained offense in that game. Detroit was +1 yards per play against Tampa, but Goff had one of his yearly stinkers. We see one every year where he just, falls over himself, throws some picks. and then he got it out of the way early here. The offense tried to press Tampa Bay's secondary injuries instead of pivoting to running the ball once Vea went out, which they probably should have done. I think they're going to do that here against this Cardinals defense, and have similar success to Buffalo in week 1, where they just score a bunch of points and the defense gets enough stops to cover. This look ahead line was around 4.5, I believe, and came down because Arizona looks so good. I think we're getting value here, but for the people out there, wait to play it. It's a very soft 3 right now. I was able to snap up 2.5 at one point earlier this week. I think there are going to be a situation where we do get a 2.5 at some point again. So play the 2.5 for sure. But if all you have is a soft 3, I'm still playing the 3.
I'm going to go full donkey here and take the over. I think the Lions secondary is still coming together. Cardinals have to hold up offensively in terms of the line enough to get Kyler time, but he can scramble. I think 41 from them last week. I think we see plenty of points here. We get the over in this game. All right, we have 3 primetime games we have to cover. We will cover them coming up after the break. Chiefs, Falcons, Jaguars, Bills, Commanders, Bengals, an excellent stretch of football. We'll tell you who to take. Coming up next on the Early Edge NFL Best Bet Show. Welcome back to the Week 3 NFL Early Edge Pick Show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White. We've got 3 primetime games to get through here, and we will start with the Chiefs at the Falcons on Sunday night. Atlanta, incredible victory over the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night. Now they have to host the Chiefs. Arthur Blank inducting himself into the Ring of Honor here in exciting fashion. I'm going to take Travis Kelce over 4.5 receptions here, Mike, primarily because Chiefs have no running backs. I think they use him as their short yardage guy, and I think it's the first game of the year where Kelce gets going. What say you?
I like the Chiefs in this spot. I do like Kelce over 4.5, but I will push back on not having a running back. I think rookie Carson Steele is going to have a lot of success in this particular game, just like Saquon Barkley did up the middle at times. The Eagles just kind of abandoned it against the Falcons. I think that happens again here. But if I'm wrong and they don't, is giving Patrick Mahomes 6 to 10 extra passing attempts really a bad thing? I don't think it is personally. So I like Kansas City in this spot. I think that if the Eagles had hang on and won that game and they didn't lose Pacheco, this spread would be 6 in this particular spot. I think it's an overreaction. And then the last thing quickly, the Kansas City Chiefs have the quickest pace of play so far in terms of some of the snap counts. When looking at plays run that have the snap between 1 and 5 seconds left on the play clock, just 9 times this year. The second lowest number, the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think that's a good thing for the Falcons, having a quick pace, giving potential more time to Patrick Mahomes and more possessions. So give me the Chiefs minus 3.5 here.
Jaguars at the Bills. Bills minus 5.5 over under a 45.5. RJ, are you riding your Bills or taking the dog here?
I'm taking the dog. Buffalo's defense gave up 474 yards in this matchup last year. Defense is once again dealing with injuries in the back 7. Jacksonville could be 2-0, a little bit of a meltdown here. I think they come to play and keep this one close. They could actually win this game. Plus 5.5 is too much for this matchup.
Okay. Buffalo likes to play it slow too. I would lean towards the under in that spot. Commanders and the Bengals Monday night, final one. Larry, the Bengals minus 7.5, probably going to be one of the most popular survivor plays here. Does their defense get going, or could Jaden Daniels do some work in this game?
Well, he can do some work because the Bengals are bringing in guys off the street to play defensive line. BJ Hill, Sheldon Rankins went down. DJ Reader lost in the offseason. Jaden Daniels has been number 5 in EPA. And this is a Commanders team. They couldn't score a touchdown last week, but they got into the red zone 7 times. I like them over 19.5 against this Bengals D.
Very interesting. RJ, you got a quick lean on the over?
Yeah, maybe since his deal shut down Daniels, but until we see it, I think we have to look to the over. Washington's been moving the ball 5.8 yards per play through 2 weeks, despite the lack of weapons in the passing game on offense. So they're getting it done. I think trust this game to go over.
All right, that'll do it for us. That's all the games in week 3. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to The Early Edge, a daily SportsLine betting podcast. We'll see you next week.